r/AskReddit. What is something that once you noticed it, you can now no longer unnotice it? I know a lot of common sounds will always sound very similar, but once you've watched enough movies you will notice that most films use the same sound effects for their films. Cars braking hard, people gasping, guns being racked. All of these films use the exact same sound effects for some reason. And babies crying. Empty cups. I don't know why most shows and movies can't be bothered to put a liquid of any sort into coffee cups for scenes. You can tell when someone is holding a cup with something in it or just acting like it, and fake sips never come out well. Sometimes you can literally see the emptiness. Actors glancing down for their mark. Once you're aware, you look for it in every scene. It's most easily spotted in sitcoms. This reminds me of season 1 Fresh Prince. Apparently Will had a habit of mouthing other people's lines in scenes and I can't unsee it now. He does it in the episode with Don Cheadle. Ice Tray is the character's name, lol. IDK, but you ever get a car and then notice you start seeing that car everywhere? This is caused by the simulation not having enough memory to store all the different vehicles. So you end up with some duplication and start seeing banshees everywhere once you get one. How humans naturally break eye contact when talking to each other. Every 3 seconds, they glance away. Now every time I talk to someone, I notice them glancing away. Supposedly it's a way to communicate in a non-threatening manner as staring equals intent, either sexual or violent. Oh good, I thought I was weird for not keeping constant eye contact. When you're a welder you notice how shitty most welds are that hold crucial components together. Tom Cruise's front tooth. That dude's entire face was like, what if we have really good symmetry, but not the way you're thinking. Mickey Mouse's ears are, by design, always facing the camera. If you watch almost any Disney show with Mickey in it, his ears will migrate around the silhouette of his head. In certain instances his ears will even switch sides. Same thing with Goku's hair. How many times someone says or other filler words? Filler words are considered a normal part of speech, 2% of spoken words or so, which is actually kind of a lot. It made me more forgiving of when I use them myself, which in turn ended up meaning I use fewer of them. But yes, once I notice in a given conversation, there's no going back. Every time you swallow, your ears click. Vet Tech here. I recently realized that one of Grey's Anatomy's background noises is the noise a fluid pump makes when it needs to be reset. It is a noise I am very familiar with and one that grates on my nerves. You're doing great if that's the only thing about Grey's that grates on your nerves. Daniel Radcliffe's awkward acting jaw. He juts it out a bit, giving himself an underbite look. And his out of sync blinks. Bad green screen in movies. Totally breaks immersion. Driving scenes are the worst for this, especially in older movies shows. Doesn't help that the driver spends the scene slightly wiggling the steering wheel while spending maybe 1 cumulative second actually looking at the road. Singers breathing in music. So many breaths. I lean away from the mic to breathe in. Stripper poles are rigged to rotate on bearings. When a stripper elegantly runs up to a pole and spins around it, the pole is rotating. If it didn't, strippers would get the worst chafing. No worries, sliding down still chafes, especially if you're just starting out. Also, not all poles rotate. In competitive pole sports the stage will have 2 poles, one static, one spinning. In Glee the show choir was named New Directions BC. The PPL in charge thought it was funny that it sounded like New Directions. The word bed looks like a side view of a bed. The word boob shows you top view, front view, side view. A sign maker for a local Chinese restaurant made an error when creating the lighted sign for the business. It reads, "We delivery," instead of "free delivery." They let the Chinese restaurant have the sign for free if they accepted it as is. I'd never noticed the "we delivery" until it was pointed out. Whoopi Goldberg doesn't have eyebrows. As a kid I loved her movies. Never once did I realize she has no eyebrows. When I got older I realized it and pointed it out to my mom, who also never realized. We can't look at her the same. In movies and TV, nobody ever says bye at the end of a phone call. The variety of shapes of people's ears. Fun fact, Each person's ears are unique, so you could actually take an earprint like a fingerprint to identify people. Mona Lisa looks like George Washington. That's WHOIT. I always knew she looked familiar and figured she's in so many cartoons and other cinematic things. I'm just familiar with her face. George. Ducking. Washington. Thank you. Thank you so much. This mystery has been lurking in the bottom of my brain for over 2 decades. Sometimes I can see my heartbeat inside one of my eyes. It's like my vision slightly darkens in a specific spot for just a moment. It's easier to see when outdoors. Look up blue field entoptic phenomenon. It's a known visual phenomenon, mostly visible when in bright light and especially against blue backgrounds, like a bright summer sky, and really is your blood vessels pumping blood through your retina. Source: I'm optician and had to study crazy things like this. A light to mild case of tinnitus. The kind that you forget about until jerks like me remind you. Like losing the game. I've had this for years without realizing it. The weird thing is I never saw it as a bad thing until I learned what tinnitus is. For a good while after that I always noticed the ringing and it was annoying. But once I ignored it again things went back to normal. So now I don't look at it as a bad thing. I see it as the sound my brain makes when it's awake. Kind of like that high-pitched sound older TVs used to make when you turned them on. It makes dealing with it a whole lot easier. Every time I need to trim my fingernails. Totally fine, 1 sec. Then I'm going crazy. They're so long. Everything is awful. People's verbal tics. Once I notice someone uses a word or sound without noticing, like or uhh, I have trouble focusing on anything else. For example, I have a coworker that uses alright as a filler word and I don't think he realizes how often he says it. Alright, we ran the test and alright, once we pulled up the data, alright, we found that such and such didn't read like we expected. Alright, so we pulled up the first time we ran this test. Alright, and what we saw that time, alright, was, I've gotten to the point that I just count his alrights instead of actually listening to him. Hugh Laurie's American accent on House MD. If I had to describe it, it's like him doing an American accent without an actual American accent. Everywhere in the US, people have accents. Even the people who don't think they have one. They just don't hear it because they've been around it their entire lives. So his delivery is just a flat intonation of what a non-American would probably think we all sound like. And it works. He's a great actor. It's just once I noticed it in the show I couldn't forget it. The arrow and the FedEx logo. The arrow and the Amazon logo goes from A to Z. I'm a nurse. I can't help but look at people's veins to assess where I'd place the IV. Those 2-pronged coat hangers that look like drunk octopuses. Cause have faces. Ka-chow. How 99% of movie posters are blue and orange. Any random faces in any pattern. There's one in my bathroom's linoleum floor that watches me on the throne ever since I saw it. When you're manually breathing. I hate you. When you type LOL, it looks like a little stick figure dude drowning. Chicago Bulls logo upside down looks like a robot is violating a crab. I always thought it looked like a robot reading a book. Now you've ruined me. Thanks. Giada De Laurentiis on the Food Network has a big head. And approximately 3,000 teeth. When I went to university when I was younger I had to take a design class. I was in university for web development so this seemed related. I was immediately turned off from the class because it had nothing directly related to web design but was just a class on design principles. I grew to cherish the lessons I had learned and it made me realize how poorly designed most consumer shit truly is. Sit in a vehicle but it's hard to see out the back window. Shit design. Buy a blender and want to clean it only to find it awful and difficult. Shit design. Want to log into your government's website and change your settings but it only works in IE8. Shit design. You get the point. Anytime in life you notice something awesome product acting as a hindrance to you is shit design. Remove these products from your life as soon as possible and do your best to not reward these companies with your money. I'm obese, and I feel my weight. It's a good thing. I feel absurdly heavy. My back hurts. Moving my torso takes a ton of work. My stomach is problematic. and my center of gravity is way too high. Once I felt it, I felt motivated to lose that feeling. When you watch a film at the cinema, even though most are digital transmissions, they still have the odd white fleck you sometimes notice. This is the watermark that uniquely identifies that film being played. So if it is pirated and put on the web, then the film companies know exactly which cinema it was played in. The constant din of shopping cart wheels when you are at the grocery store, it's all I can hear now. Ever notice how all stars seem to have the same spiky shape regardless of their size? I notice it whenever I look up at the night sky now. The shape you see is completely unique to your eye's own geography, how the small lines on them smear the light, so they will all look slightly different to each person. That's also why when you are looking at telescopic pictures of stars you can sometimes tell what kind of aperture they used to take the pictures. For example, Hubble telescope pictures usually have fairly distinctive 4-point stars. Arby's logo looks like penis. This is the quality content I made this post for. That scratch in the middle of your glasses. Or when you suddenly notice there's dust all over the lenses and your vision immediately gets worse until you wipe them off. My wife pointed out that sometimes makeup artists will draw lipstick outside the lips to make the lips bigger, different shapes, etc. I freaking see it everywhere now. How often people interrupt each other during a conversation. Nibbler in the pilot episode. A dead pixel. There's a bird cawing sound every few seconds in the song Jumpman by Drake. A bunch of Led Zeppelin songs, like Since I've Been Loving You, Houses of the Holy, and All My Love have a squeaky bass drum pedal. Apparently, the bass pedal John Bonham used was called the Ludwig Speed King, and there was no way to oil the inner mechanisms. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.